talking rain starting here in a few minutes. So since we're not going to be able to go out in the field and do stuff today, I want to talk about something that's kind of controversial, aka government subsidy payments to farmers, and more specifically, how right now the United States government is offering farmers up to $1 million per year in government subsidies. You know those things in life that are super satisfying, like having a full tank of gas or clean sheets on your bed? Well, mine is having a clean entryway.
Oh, Ellie, who are you barking at? Hey, this is my house. Who are you barking at? I guess Cooper ended up buying a new toy.
How'd you make out on that driveway?
Good, I'm waiting for him to... We're gonna finish it today, but I don't think it's gonna happen.
Okay, that meaning cut short. It's coming down hard. No, Ellie, you're not coming in the house. You smell like a wet dog.
¿Cómo se dice adiós en italiano?
How do you say goodbye in Italian? This is a packet I got from my local farm service agency. They're free to get. Just walk in, grab one. If you want to go get one, you can. But this is highlighting two government programs that are currently going on right now that will pay farmers. And I want to talk about this because I feel like there's a lot of common misconceptions that go on around government payments to farmers. People think the government just pays farmers all this money for no reason. So we'll do a little bit review of kind of what these are about, and we'll talk about it.
In the United States of America, farm subsidies are in place for three reasons: price disasters, yield disasters, and natural disasters. Most farmers don't really have much say over how much money they sell their crops for. They don't have any control over what yield that they're going to get because they have no idea what the weather's going to do. And speaking of the weather, we don't know if a natural disaster is going to come in place and destroy an entire crop. So the United States government says, hey farmers, you guys take on an incredible amount of risks, so we want to be there to have your back just in case that revenue floor completely drops out from under you on things that you cannot control. We want to be there to help keep you propped up because we need you guys to stay in business because you guys are what feed the world.
That revenue floor, or that subsidy that the government provides farmers, falls under two different things. The first one is the Farm Bill. It was passed in 2018 and it's going to continue through 2023. This is an every single year thing. So if the total revenue for a farmer drops below whatever threshold that the government decided to set as being acceptable, then a payment will kick in. So this goes for every single year. Then the second type are specialty ones. So if some major natural disaster event happened that affects the revenue of farmers, then they get together, they vote, and they say, okay, we decide we are going to give the farmers who fall into this criteria this much, that criteria this much, and this criteria, they may get nothing at all. So that is what we're looking at now, a natural disaster event.
The first program is the RONA Assistance Revenue Program. Basically, if RONA came in and took your total revenue down 15% over what is considered a normal year based off your tax history, then a payment can kick in. Then the other one is the ERP Phase 2 program, or the Emergency Relief Program. In 2020, basically most of the Midwest in the United States got smacked with a ginormous storm of 110-mile-an-hour winds, and it basically took all of the corn, flattened it on the ground, destroyed a bunch of soybeans, buildings, grain bins, homes, you name it, gone. So the PARP was based off unforeseeable sickness that could have impacted the revenue of farmers. And then the ERP Phase 2 was based on a ginormous natural disaster, aka a derecho. Derecho. ¿Cómo se dice derecho en español? Derecho? No sé. In order for us to even be eligible for this, we need to have an adjusted gross income of less than $900,000. So basically, by the time every single one of our bills are completely said and done, that number that we have left over needs to be less than 900K. We also must be an U.S. citizen. Is that right, grammar? Must be an U.S. citizen? A U.S. citizen? U is a vowel, so it's supposed to be an. That just sounds wrong. 75% of our income must come from farming. Now, it can be less, but we're limited. I'll get to that in a minute, and this only applies to the ERP Phase 2.
Hey, Dad, slash all grave digging prices in half.
We must raise eligible crops and animals, so we can't have, be raising zebras or giraffes or something, because they're not eligible. We must obtain crop insurance. This is for the ERP Phase 2 only, and we can't be robot.
Actually, I don't think it says anything about being a robot.
So I'm gonna go over how they calculate the payments, what the payments are going to be for our farm, And then we're going to talk about how we can game the system. When it comes to these programs, we care about 2 years. We care about a normal year or a base year. So in this case, 2018 and 2019. And then we care about the impact year, or the year that natural phenomenon that was really bad happened. So in this case, 2020. A lot of the times the government will let us pick between 2 base years. So we want to look for the best base year. This shows us that, hey, our normal is normally really high. In 2018, the farm grossed $991,365. In 2019, it grossed $1,068,246. So we're going to use 2019. And just to show how much money we don't actually keep, in 2018, we ended up actually losing $121,000. We had 0 taxable income. 2019, we lost $840, 0 taxable income. In 2020, we lost $140 with 0 taxable income. In order to qualify for the PARP payment, our impact year, or 2020, needs to be 15% or more less than what the base year is. So 2020 needs to be 15% or more less than 2019. We're gonna take our 2020 revenue and we're gonna divide it by our 2019 revenue. That number needs to come out to less than 0.85. We have a 0.9855, so we have a 1.5% difference between these two. In other words, we're not qualified for the PARP payment, so we are going to receive 0. Let's say our base year is normally $1 million, and we ended up coming in on our impact year at $750,000. So we have a $250,000 difference. So what the government would do in this situation is they would apply a multiplier to it. Now it's either gonna be 80% or it's gonna be 90%. And that depends on who you are. If you're left-handed and you're under 6 feet tall, you actually get 95%. And if your name is Bob, Steve, or Pete, you only get 70% because they're trying to discourage those names. I'm just kidding. If you are a farmer who's been in business for longer than 10 years, you're gonna get 80%. But if you are a beginner farmer or rancher, a limited resource farmer or rancher, a socially disadvantaged farmer or rancher, or a veteran farmer or rancher, you get 90%. If you've been farming for less than 10 years, you are considered a beginner farmer. I fall into that category. So since I came in $250,000 under baseline, I would be getting a $225,000 payment. Where if I'd been farming a little bit longer, I would have gotten a $200,000 payment. But hold on a second, we gotta read the fine print. We're limited to a payment of $125,000. On a normal year, we make $1 million, but unfortunately, we were at $750,000 on the impact year. Then with the government payment, now we're at $875,000, but we're still $125,000 below a normal year. So it's much better to have a normal year than it is to be at a loss and have the government come in and give a payment, because we're still below what we normally would be on a normal year. So it's more one of those things where it's kind of there to help your nose kind of just barely be close to the surface of the water versus being 3 feet under. Now these programs are absolutely not perfect because there are ways that people can game the system. There's gonna be somebody down the road from somebody watching this video who's like, we did not have a bad year because my neighbor took that money that he got from this program and he bought a new truck and he bought a new lake house and he did all these things with it. Well, this is probably what happened, and it was completely accident. Unless, of course, you knew that these things were going to be coming ahead of time and then you made decisions accordingly like 2 years in advance, which how you would know that, you'd have to be able to see really far ahead. This is basically the rules sheet for the PARP program of what is allowable for revenue, and that's on this side, and then what is not allowable. So one of the things that is allowable is inventory carried over from the prior tax year, and government payments are also allowable. Say I'm a farmer and I normally produce 3 lens cleaners per year. So I have 2018, I produced 3. I have 2019, I produced 3. I have 2020, I produced 3. In 2018, I said, you know what? I only need to sell 2. And then I kept this one over and I ended up saving it for the next year. So technically, I end up selling 4 in 2019. So now, when I go back to 2020, I only have 3. I just had 4 right here. Now I have 3. So we're 25% less in 2020 than we were in 2019. So that would technically then make it where my 2020 revenue was more than 15% less than what my base year was, 2019. Or in 2019, the government came in and gave me a payment. So then in 2020, when I didn't get that, now we're 15% less due to that payment. Or let's say our base year was the best yield we've ever had by 25%,
And then our impact year was just a normal year. Prices were exactly the same, but since we had more crop in our base year than we did in our impact year, it sets off the trigger. And please take what I'm saying and get it double checked with your FSA representative if you're wanting to dive into these things, because I'm going off how I'm interpreting these little overview sheets that they're giving us, and there could be little nuances that are different. So please check with your local FSA office to be 100% sure.
Okay, I gotta be really quiet right now because Neva and Edward are sleeping in that room and the door's open right now and I don't want to wake them up. I've got a little bit more I gotta take care of here. Before I do that, Dad and I are gonna go dig a grave. Before we get going, this is the reason why I really like to have gravel in the driveway. As we can see, following these skid loader tracks around the big machine shed, we don't have gravel over there. This thing must have drove through some mud, and then we just end up tracking it all the way down the driveway. And by the time you do this 100 times, then you can't even see the gravel anymore. Mental note to self, Cole, finish the driveway. Looks like we're gonna have to be rocking the teeth bucket today. Cooper was redoing that driveway over at Carroll's, and I think he left the smooth front bucket over there. We also got the postal digger on. We have a 12-inch cremation to dig at the cemetery today as well, so we're doing a full size and a cremation. Or in English terms, we're doing one. That is where the person is inside of the vault, laying like this, or like this, I guess they do. And then the other one is their ashes, so little urn, coffee can size.
Esta chaqueta es más bonita.
Beep, 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 beep. I got a trailer behind me, truck! Looks like we got the grave marker here and the family. So I'm gonna leave you guys in here for this meeting. I don't know if they're for the full size or the cremation. We don't know where we're digging. We just know it's at the cemetery. That's why the marker guy's here. We already got the postal digger hooked up, so we are digging the cremation first, and then the full size one's gonna be over there. Now, the challenge we're gonna run into on this full size grave is somebody was buried right beside last year, so that soil has not really had time to set in, doesn't have that globulin holding it together, so it's very loose. So I don't know if we're gonna try to dig that back a little bit, because otherwise I just feel like in the morning we're gonna come back and about half of that grave is gonna end up in this hole. It's just gonna cave right off. My family bought the grave digging business from my great uncle in 1998. I was born in 1997, so minus a year from my life. I've been digging graves my entire life. Probably more seriously when I turned like 15, so I've had 10 years of solid grave digging experience. It probably helped with, we'll say 20 a year during that time, so I've buried over 200 people. That's kind of crazy when you think about it that way. And sometimes it's busier than you think. I mean, just right where we're sitting, we got a grave there's one on the other side of that stone, there's two right on the other side of that next row. Got one right there, we got one right there. Dad gives a lot of credit to the grave digging over the years for being kind of the emergency plan for the farm, on helping the farm get through some tough times. That the grave digging business has been a major blessing when it's came to that. Just helped cash flow move a little bit when things were really tight. And speaking of tight, this corner is tight because this truck does not turn very sharp. The ramps on the cemetery trailer are kind of heavy for one guy to pick up. For years, Dad's always talked about how we just need to do a little shaving on those ramps, make them lighter, easier to flip up. I'm just like, why don't we get some hydraulic flip-up ramps? Watch your ears! Should probably do another couple Spanish lessons, because Grandma Lovebug came out of nowhere and she's coming for me. Who is this lady? Okay, missed 6 different languages, mostly German. Where did you come from? You weren't even on the radar earlier. Are you kidding me? Yeah, it's because you had a 2,000 point day. You're underestimating me, Grandma. Just a little update on Uncle Orland's farm. Ron has been hard at work with the excavator, tearing down the old barn. Looks like he's got some tin piled up here in a nice little pile. So Cooper just brought down the trailer of the scrap guys. We're gonna load up that tin, bring that into the scrapyard. They've been getting all the other trash and stuff out of here. So basically we burned up the trees and kind of burying the root balls now in the concrete. Everyone's not used to this. They're driving by all slow, looking like, what is going on around here? Where Ron's at right now is where the old corn crib used to be. Looks like it's starting to rain again. ERP phase 2. The other part of the government program. As for calculating what this payment is going to be, it's not so simple. The PARP was very clear cut and dry. Hey, if you are this much percentage below, this is the calculation, nice and easy to find. This ERP phase 2 payment, it's all based off our Schedule F return, and the way I'm interpreting this is we turn that in
to the Farm Service Agency, and then they evaluate it, and then they say, okay, you are eligible for X amount of payment, or you are not eligible for anything. And so we kind of just have to fill out a form and turn that in. And unfortunately, I do not have my Schedule F for some reason. My CPA has that, so I'm going to make an appointment with him. I'm going to go up there and visit, and we'll put together a thing there's a little sheet we have to fill out and we'll turn in. So we won't find out right now. I honestly have no idea. Sometimes you don't find out for months if there is a payment on something, and then they'll come back and say, okay, we're going to be giving out this much, or we're not going to be giving out anything based off what you turned in. So I really don't know if we qualify for anything on this, to be honest.
But I do know there are 2 payment limitations when it comes to the ERP Phase 2 program. The first one is if less than 75% of your income comes from farming. So on our farm, we farm and we dig graves. Say we make $100,000 in a year total, and 70 of that comes from the farm, 30,000 of it comes from digging graves. We'd be at less than 75% from farming. We'd be capped at $125,000. Where if more than 75% of our revenue came from farming, then if we had a high value or a specialty crop, we'd be capped at $900,000. And then for our corn and soybeans being more of a normal crop, we'd be capped at $250,000. And this can be stacked with the PARP payment. I really wish I fully knew how they came up with the calculations for what the payment is going to be on these ER Phase 2 payments, but I will say this: if your normal base year is $1 million per year for total farm revenue, and you came in at an $800,000 a year, your payment's probably going to be somewhere to bring you back up to that baseline year. They're not going to have you be at a normal $1 million baseline year and then bring you up to like a $1.5 million baseline year with these payments. They typically don't go above and beyond unless you're able to game the system a little bit and kind of just take advantage of how the cookie crumbled. It's 2020. We just had the windstorm. We went out and we harvested our crop. Some people went and just worked their crop under because it was completely flat on the ground. Ours was at the point we thought, maybe we could get in there and harvest as much as we could. That way we don't have to deal with as much corn growing next year that falls on the ground in the field. That would be quite the battle. So we went out and harvested. We got 100 bushels per acre. Normally we get 200 bushels per acre. So our baseline average, our baseline year is 200. Our impact year was 100. Our crop insurance kicks into play. So the way crop insurance works, that difference, we have 80% coverage on that difference. So we got paid 80% of that sum. So now we are here. Since we ended up going out and harvesting our grain, once we had it sitting in the bin, then the price went up $1 per bushel. So now we're above what we'd be on a normal year by the time we got our crop insurance payment, and we were able to capitalize on the higher price that the grain's now worth. And then ERP Phase 1 came into play, so we got another little bit on top of that. And then so now if we get ERP 2, which I really don't know if we are or not, don't shoot me, I'm just the messenger, but then we'd be even better for that year. So this would be baseline, this is where we'd be. And that's kind of how we gamed the system, and we did not do that intentionally at all. We just wanted to go out and harvest the crop. Now, our equipment did take a heck of a beating during that time, and what normally we had wear in 6 years on, it did it in a single season. So, maybe our revenue was here, but by the time we had to fix stuff up, we were here. But I still think we were ahead by going out in the field and doing that. Now, if people could look back on 2020, 2020 vision, more guys probably would have gone out and tried to harvest their crops so that way they could basically get the same benefit that we got, but we just got lucky because we decided to take a risk and do that. We didn't know that was going to happen. Are these government payments fair, or are they justified for farmers? I'm a farmer, so I'm going to be a little biased in certain instances, and I'm going to say yes for some cases, and I'm going to say no for others. Now, the problem that I see that we have with these is it's a division. You're either on one side of it or the other. And for every single topic that comes up, you'll have opinions change on things. One person will look one way on one thing, and then you flip it to another situation, and then all of a sudden they're looking a completely opposite direction. That's just how we work, and it makes sense. And I think those things are in place for good reason when it comes to when they're actually supposed to be used for what they're supposed to be used for. But the problem I see is we get so many people who throw an opinion in on what should be or what should not be, but then they do not actually have a solution themselves to make it better. It's just like, let's just throw a complaint out there and say this is flawed, this isn't fair, this, that, whatever. but then not offer any feedback whatsoever on how can we make this fair and how can we make this a good solution. Because the reality of it is most farmers use these programs for what they are intended to be used for. Yes, you are going to see guys who are able to game the system, and that's just how the world works. And it also works differently among different farmers because some farmers are a lot bigger than others. Some farmers have a lot more money than others. Some farmers are way smarter than others. And that's okay. We're all different and we all use our skills differently. There's nothing wrong with that. But we cannot crucify somebody for using their intellect and using their work ethic who got ahead and are now able to use these things for their advantage. I don't think that's something we should punish. Now, should we just beat the little guy because he's smaller and just have these big guys dominate them all the time and like make policy in place or make these subsidies in place to favor the big guys over the small guys? I don't necessarily think that's fair either, because most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, these big guys got big because they are better at something. And so if they already have a competitive advantage because they are better, whether they're smarter, they're better at taking risks, they're better at timing, whatever it may be, they have some advantages already. So maybe, you know, if the government can kind of put a big toe in the door to help these littler guys get along and, you know, be able to keep up. Because at the end of the day, it becomes really hard to beat big dollars. When you get into a bidding game with someone with way more money than you, it's pretty hard to win. And so, you know, as someone who is on the smaller side, like our farm, I'd call us average size for the area. But we have certain advantages that bigger farmers don't. And so, you know, we just have to play the game to our advantage where we can and do our best and continually try and to continually learn. And the more we do that, we will eventually become these if we put in the work and we put in the effort and we do something with our mindset and our actions to make changes to get there. Because honestly, you look at a guy doing a bunch, a guy not doing as much, oftentimes it's just very subtle differences that they're doing, and this person just does them every day without quit. And oftentimes we compare this person to this person, and this person may have been doing it for 60 years and this person's been doing it for 7, and then we say, well, this isn't fair at all. Well, this person has 8 times the experience, and 8 times the experience is exponential. So that's just where we have to get better. Now, these government subsidies, are they perfect? No, obviously not. I'm just being the messenger here. This is the ones that are going on right now. So if you didn't know about them, head down to your local FSA office, check it out, and if there's some money that can help your farm, more power to you. Go get it. Keep improving your farm. That is all I have for today. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you think. What are your solutions down below? We'll see you in the next one.